Hello, my name is Jeff Green from Green Team Realty. Thank you for joining me for this month's housing market update, the last one of 2018. Let's jump right in and check out some numbers here, and we'll come back and talk to our panel. So we're going to take a look nationally first. The overall sentiment is, okay, well, the housing market seems to be cooling off. Now what? What's going to happen? And so now it's all about predictions from people like myself, your local realtor, economists, so on and so forth. But let's take a look at, what some of just broader projections are. So this is an interesting graphic here. When you take a look at 105 economists, market analysts, and real estate experts, 99% of them think that home prices will continue to appreciate through 2019. It doesn't mean that the market's not going to slow. It just means that the rate of appreciation is going to continue to be on a positive note. But I think everybody agrees that it's going to appreciate at a lesser value in 2019. So that's interesting. The second one, I find this to be of great importance. Robert Shiller is truly one of the thought leaders in the space of real estate analytics. There's no question that his opinion counts. Here's what he says: you can call it a bubble, but it's not the same. It's more placid. And what he's talking to is in review of where we were in 2008 versus where we are in 2018, 10 years ago. Of course, for those of you who don't remember, I don't know how you couldn't possibly, but having lived through it and worked through it, it was a very traumatic experience going through that last downturn where almost about 50% of the transactions in the marketplace just went away within a 2-year period of time. So he's not expecting a sharp turn in the housing market. And I would say that I agree with that. I think that that's been my personal sentiment now for a few months, and it's largely what I've been reading by a lot of people that are a lot smarter and better connected than I am. This is a good little chart here we had for you back in November, but this is an update on just some information that has been conveyed since then. And this basically shows, these are some of the, larger organizations that provide information to our industry. And these are their predictions of where things are going to be headed in the future. So when you average them all out, it looks like, they're all considering 18 to be about 5.5% once it's all said and done. Next year is going to be just under 4%, 3%, 2.3%. And then it looks like maybe a little bit of a bounce here according to this one here. But again, a slow turn towards the downside, not a major sharp negative look. Here's an interesting diagram as well. This is state by state. And, as you can expect, you look to the coasts, and that's where price appreciation normally happens the fastest. Most people, as they get older in life, tend to move south and to the coast. But what you'll also notice is that really no projections here are in the red for any state, even including Alaska, so on and so forth. And the large majority of the population in the United States, we're looking at a very substantial increase, historically speaking, in terms of price. So if you weren't to think about prices actually coming down, and you were just to say, well, let's forget about what's happened in the past and let's just look forward at these numbers, these are actually very, very solid numbers. So if we could have another very, very solid year in 2019, just like we did in 2018, it's good for everybody. So let's drill down hyper-local at this point and take a look at, this is Orange County, the number of units sold. The red line is representing 2018. You'll notice that, it's kind of a soft landing, right? There's not a huge variance between last year and this year. This is average price. The red line represents this year. You can see that it kind of spiked, peaked over the summer, and it's simmering down here a little bit, coming a little bit closer, inching a little bit closer to 2017. Especially, you can look at this month here. That variance really closed the gap if you look between, those lines between those other months. Sold to ask ratio, in other words, at what price does the home sell versus the last asking price? The higher the number, the hotter the market. So this is, again, a little bit of a mixed bag result from year over year, 18 versus 17. Now we'll go south of the border down to Sussex County, New Jersey, and check that out as well. Even a little bit more of a softer market there in Sussex County. It's I would say if you add all these numbers up, arguably 17 might have been a more productive year than 2018. But again, historically speaking, these are very good numbers. These are solid years, no matter what year you're talking about, the last two. Average price, you can see by the red line, it never really made the comeback that we just saw up in Orange County. But nonetheless, it did appreciate, and it's still necessarily holding its own. Sold to ask ratio, again, the higher the better. At what price versus the last asking price? A mixed bag versus 17, but again, historically good numbers. I mean, you're talking about, if you were to run an average line in here for this year, it'd probably be somewhere between 97 and 97.5%. That means that on average, homeowners are only negotiating about 2.5% off of their last asking price. So that's it for the numbers. Quick commercial interruption here. We're going to do our next housing market update where we'll have the full final set of numbers for 2018. That's going to take place on January 15th at 2 p.m. And thank you, of course, to our monthly sponsor, Really, which is a better, smarter, faster real estate referral network for agents. You can learn more about Really at reallyhq.com. All right, so let me introduce our distinguished panel. We have for you today, we'll start top to bottom, Karen Gonin from Green Team New Jersey Realty. Welcome, Karen.
Hello, everyone.
And we also have Joyce Rogers from Green Team New Jersey Realty.
Hi, everybody.
Joyce, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. And of course, our producer, Melissa Brissett, our marketing director, who does all this cool stuff to put it all together, and the Facebook Live and the recordings and all this stuff. Thanks, Melissa, for making it all happen. Okay, so Karen and Joyce, we're nearing the year end. Karen, we'll start with you. What do you think of the numbers that we just went through? What do you think is going to be in store for the new year? Go for it.
I think the new year is very promising. I think so far our numbers are better. As far as the amounts of units sold in Sussex County, I just want to remind everyone that in 2017, the banks were releasing a lot more REOs. We had a lot more inventory due to that fact that the banks were releasing them and they were being sold. However, they've started holding on to them, and the other thing they're doing is actually fixing them up, not necessarily well, and releasing them at full market price, which not everybody wants to purchase that type of an REO. So I think that's why we see such a difference between the amounts of units sold in 2017 and 2018. But as far as 2019, I think the future is bright, and judging by what I have coming up for 2019, I think we're in a really good place.
Well, that is music for my ears. Let's go to Joyce before I start talking too much. Go ahead, Joyce.
Well, I just think that the reason why there's not as much units sold, like Karen said, is because there's not as much inventory. And right now, there's hardly any inventory available at all in Sussex County. It's very, very, very slim, and people are just going to have to wait for new inventory to be released. And yeah, the foreclosures aren't out there like they were, and people, when they're looking to buy a foreclosure, they want a bargain, and right now they're really not getting one.
Yeah. Now, Joyce, just out of curiosity, getting some feedback from somebody there. You're now spending some time and actually working the Jersey Shore market as well, and I guess a quick little shout out to Green Team New Jersey Realty. We're going to be operating down there in the Jersey Shore area in 2019. Do you find the same inventory problems down there in the Shore area as well?
Not right now. Right now, I haven't really did a lot of research, but from what I have looked, there is a lot more real inventory down here, and there's not as many foreclosures as there is up in Sussex County.
Yeah.
And the conditions of the properties are by far much better, and the prices are higher down here.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, Sussex County is tends to be a hotbed for, has tended to be a hotbed for foreclosure activity the last few years. Another interesting tidbit, Karen, is it just brought to mind a good article that I read in the Journal this past week. They were commenting on flippers and how people who flip homes, fix up, flip, so on and so forth, are cooling off. They're kind of signaling to the marketplace that, you know what, our returns might not be so great in, you know, the immediate term here, so we're just going to hold off. And they're finding that, you know, they're using a lot of different sources to get to that information. But that does seem to be happening, you know, where people who are turning these properties, and I think to your point, at least locally in Sussex County, I guess a lot of the flippers just haven't been able to get their hands on the inventory because the banks are doing it themselves. Is that what basically you were getting at?
Right. So we have a lot of inventory in our area in Sussex County in general, where the bank will physically hire someone who's going to come in and do the flip themselves, and then they'll sell it at fair market price, as opposed to releasing the REO when it's ruined and needs to be gutted and worked on, and having a flipper come and buy it at a lower price point and renovate it themselves in order to make the money themselves. The banks have somehow become flippers. And like I said, unfortunately, it's not always a good flip, and people can see that.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about one other thing. I'm just curious to hear, you know, from the troops on the ground. So interest rates have been rising all year long. Well, not really all year. And I would say that the softening of the real estate market really started to happen before, you know, 30-year fixed mortgage rates started to have any sort of real sort of movement on the upward side. I just, you know, we do this housing market update once a month, and we've just been looking at some numbers, and there was a point in time late spring where we were kind of like, are we seeing something where maybe this market is softening? Sure enough, here in December, now it's a done deal that it's softening. The question is how far. But do you see the increase in mortgage interest rates impacting buyers that you are working with on the local level? Joyce, you go first.
No, I don't. Most of my buyers are happy with their interest rate. I don't feel that they're pulling back or waiting to see what happens. I do know from myself, my own experience, that the rates have gone up quickly.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that it's affected the buyers I've been working with.
So in other words, they still have a hunger to do a deal.
Yes.
Karen, are you finding the same thing?
I am. I think everybody's aware that the interest rates are going up. I think what they're afraid of is that they'll go much higher. There's still a demand. People still want to get in houses. In fact, I've noticed that some of them are more willing. They're not negotiating as much. If there's something that needs to be fixed in the house and the seller says absolutely not, they don't necessarily push for it because our market has so few available houses that they'll just let it go and still purchase the house.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, when you really take a look at where rates have been historically, they're still extremely low. I mean, to me personally, a rise in rates has not been a fear factor for me at all because of where rates have been for so long. And I think it's a healthy process for the Fed to continue raising the overnight lending rates so that, you know, we can get back to some state of normalcy. So, and I think that the way that we're seeing it, you know, manifest itself in the everyday lives of buyers, I don't think that this affordability issue that everyone's really freaking out about is going to be that big of a deal. I think certainly every dollar counts. You know we live it every day, right? It's about monthly cash flow. It's, you know, it's hard for people to understand what price of a home they can afford, but they know what they can afford on a monthly basis. So of course, rising interest rates erodes that monthly nut that they can afford to spend, you know? So, all right, what else should we be looking out for in 2019? Do you have any, I'm kind of popping this on you, and I don't know if you have any quality answers to this, but either one of you, Karen or Joyce, just feel free to chime in with anything that you might want to, you know, advise us on.
Well,
What about sellers? What would your advice be?
That was going to be my point. I think sellers are also holding on to the properties just to see where we land at the end of this year. I know that I've been calling all the people that I know and in my neighborhoods where I've sold, and a lot of people seem to be on the edge as to whether or not they want to sell, whether or not they want to go on the market now. So I really think that 2019, the market is going to wake up earlier than it did this year. I remember in 2018, this year, I actually started getting busy right around March as opposed to later on.
Right. Do you think that sellers still are able to kind of hold out for their price, or do they need to start becoming a lot more cautious now about their own asking prices?
I think they need to do what's best for them, because some sellers need to sell and others don't. You have a few people that are so sick of winter in New Jersey that they want to sell now. They're just waiting to put it on the market in January of 2019. And then you have those that are saying, I don't need to move, and let's just check what I can get for my house. I've had a few of those already where they just wanted to list to see what they could get, if they could get what they had in their mind that they could, and then just take it off and not sell at all.
Said like a good politician. Gave a good quality answer without actually answering the question. That was good. That was good. Good run for state senator. I think the moral of the story, Joyce, you would probably agree with this, is that it never really pays to overprice your home.
No.
I think we would agree with that, right? Because
Absolutely. You got people.
Go ahead.
They just. I know I've seen it myself because I watch Great Gorge all the time, and some of the pricing that these people have put these condos on for, it just blows my mind. And you know, the sellers have to realize they can ask whatever they want, but it's got to appraise in the long run. And if it's not within the market, people are going to go and look just to look, not really be serious buyers. And then you have all these people just traipsing through your house just to take a look at it, and they're never going to get an offer. And the longer it sits on the market, people watch that. Buyers look to see how long it's been on the market, and then they want to know why. And you have, as a realtor, have to tell them, well, because it was overpriced when it first came on.
Yeah. And it's always a tough thing for realtors, right? Because a lot of sellers think that, we just want to get them down to a lower asking price so we can get a sale. But the truth is, statistics over the course of decades have shown that the longer your house sits on the market, the less you're going to end up taking. So it's always in your best interest to price things appropriately for where the market is. And I can tell you from my own experience, after being part of hundreds and hundreds of transactions, list side transactions particularly, it just makes sense to price it right, because even if you end up pricing a little bit lower, you're going to get multiple bids and it'll get bid up anyway. So it's a pretty good process that we have here in the United States of America, with all of us realtors competing against each other with our buyers, trying to get the home for our buyers. So, all right. Any other things to add from either of you two? Otherwise, I motion to close the meeting and look forward to next year. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you in January, and have a happy holiday season until then. Take care.
You too, Jeff. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.